Well, welcome to another episode about chatting about Fairmont. I'm Mom.
Yeah, I'm Brandon.
Thank you so much for joining with us today.
Yes, we appreciate you as always.
Yes, and we know it has been a while that Brandon and I still watch Beyond the Gate. And so they are, I know that their second season has begun, but officially a year comes in about a week from now. So we're taping this on February 9th of 2026. And we'd like to talk about some of the highlights and about Beyond the Gates and what our favorite, and we're going to give categories. And we're going to tell about some of our favorite storylines, favorite characters, worst storylines, worst characters, those types of things. All right, Brandon, are you ready?
Mom, I'm ready.
All righty. And for some of these, Brandon doesn't know ahead of time, so I could be catching him off guard. All righty. Let's talk about some of our favorite storylines. For me, Brandon, my favorite storyline actually was Ted and Nicole's anniversary party because I thought they had a really nice build up to it. It was cohesive, made sense, and they had um, well, even though the storyline and really the after effects are still going on now, but for the storyline itself, they actually had a nice little closure that they included also. And so I just thought they did a really good job with this particular storyline. All right, Brandon, what about you?
Mom, I'd have to agree with that.
Okay, sounds good. Are there any other storylines that come close to you besides that one?
I really have enjoyed that one. I feel that was very cohesive from start to finish, especially with old Ted. In terms of second, I don't. Just because I know that we've had a lot of storylines that have started and stopped, I don't know if. Actually, the one I would do is number two, would be the Articulates.
Okay, all right, sounds good. Alrighty. Now I'm going to go to the most realistic storyline, and that's something that they're doing right now, and that's really the breast cancer storyline that with Anita, and I think they're doing a nice job of trying to be as realistic as they can. They, of course, timelines and things like that kind of vary from person to person, but I think for overall effects, they're doing a nice job of kind of presenting the storyline. All right, Brandon, what about you for realistic storylines? Because soap operas don't always have realistic storylines. So, which storyline do you feel is most realistic?
Well, I'm gonna have to agree with you. I mean, I feel that that one's very down to earth, and I feel that it's one of the few things right now that can really cement the characters back into reality and help carry us into this next chapter, season two.
All righty. And then I have the storyline that's not going anywhere. And for me, that's actually Haley and Bill. Haley, in one of my previous spiels about Beyond the Gates, I had a conversation about Haley because Haley was finally given a storyline to work with. And so to kind of show that she was someone who was really after Bill the whole time period. And now that we've established that, we're not going anywhere. She is, yes, she's still poisoning Bill, but I mean, the storyline itself is not really going anywhere. We know that Bill is not going anywhere as a character, to the best of our knowledge. So I'm not quite sure where they're taking this, or if they're really writing Haley into a hole. All right, Brandon, what storyline for you doesn't seem to be going anywhere?
Ooh, I would say the one that is definitely not going anywhere, how it come to a complete halt, is everything that has to do with sort of Derek and his relationship, in the sense of that we seem to be in an endless cycle of Derek doing something to break Ashley's trust, Ashley beginning to rebuild the trust, whether as a friend, as a lover, as whatever, and then he does something else or keeps a secret or dies in everyone. But like we're not really progressing anywhere with that.
I completely agree with that, Brandon. I really do. All right. And then from there, we have favorite couples. And I'm going to go very traditional with this. My favorite couple is actually Vernon and Anita. I think they're solid in what they have. I like the way they work with their family. I like the way they work with their kids and their grandkids and how they recognize everyone who is related to them, unless, of course, you're Bill or Ted. But even they're coming around to them now. All right, Brandon, what about you for favorite couple?
there's only two couples in my mind that are even contenders for this, and I'm gonna have to do Vernon and Anita as well. And in case you're wondering what that other couple is, that'll be Martin and Smitty, but they're my number two spot. So Vernon and Anita are number one.
Alrighty. And then I have from there most underutilized character. And it's funny, Brandon, you just said the name. For me, it's Smitty. I think that Smitty has so much potential as an actor. I like how he is on the show. And so I think that, and I know they're giving him an undercover um, type of storyline right now, but to me, it's still not beefy enough. I think that he could do wonders with a real storyline. So I would like to see them utilize him. All right, Brandon, what about you for the most underutilized character?
Well, I have to go with Smitty as well.
Okay. And why for you?
Well, I mean, for me, I feel that he's a bit more down to earth than the Martin in many instances, but also too that I feel that everyone that is not immediately in the Dupree circle is almost excluded from everything. Now I think everyone across the board likes Smitty, and I think Kat even mentions that if Smitty and Martin were to ever split up, that she will take Smitty. All that to say, though, and I think that other people agree with that, but I feel that we can do more for his character as a person without necessarily intertwining him with other people.
Okay. Sounds good. Alrighty, and then I have best villain, and like I said, that's kind of like an oxymoron there. But anyway, for me, best villain is I have two. The first one's Joey. I was a big fan of Joey, John Lindstrom, who plays Kevin on General Hospital, and so I think after seeing the dichotomy between the roles, he's doing a really great job on Beyond the Gates because it's such a different character for him. And then, well, I say that, but then I always have to remember he was Ryan Chamberlain also. But anyway, but for right now, I like his villain character. And then Allison. I know that Allison's really not in the show right now. However, she was a villain toward Chelsea, and so I thought she did, for acting purposes, did a good job of being that villain. So those are my two for best villain. What about you?
So, Mom, I'm going to agree with both of those, but I'm going to have my own in my mind, the petty villain, if you will, and I'm going to go with Leslie slash Dana or whatever you would like to call her for the day.
That sounds good to me, Brandon. I completely agree and understand about that one too.
And the reason as to why I even say that is because similar to the ones that you both that you said, is most of the villains of the show don't actually follow through with what they're trying to do. They just end up talking about it. But like Leslie, she put her words into action and actually broke up Nicole and Ted. Her one thing that she was trying to do, she did it. In the same regard, Allison, the only thing she wanted to do was have Chelsea all to herself. And well, she did that for better or for worse. Joey wanted Vanessa all to himself. So, you just kill off Doug. So, I mean, I guess that's the moral of the theme is that the villains just try to kill people.
I guess so. All right. And then as for worst couple, for me, this is Madison and Chelsea. They are, even though they should be likable, as individuals, I do like them. As a couple, there's something not quite mixing with me. And I was kind of hoping that Madison would have this really odd past. And I know she has a past with her mother, but I was kind of hoping she has something going on, but apparently she doesn't. It's just not working for me. So I'd like to see Chelsea with someone else. I don't know who that person is, but that's just my thoughts of the day. All right, Brandon, what about you for worst couple?
I will agree with the couple, but I'm actually going to flip your most recent statement.
Okay.
I would like to see only because Chelsea is always very is the dominant person in the relationship. She's always the take charge person.
Mm-hmm.
I would want to see if they are no longer together. I would want to see Madison stay, and I would want to see Madison continue a relationship with someone else.
Hmm. And that works for me too. It would give her a little bit, actually, a better plot point. Um, Once more, I don't know who she'd be with, but they could bring in another character for that. And Chelsea, I don't. Once more, I don't know who I'd want Chelsea with, but no one on the story, no one on the soap right now. So they'd have to reach out and hire someone for that. Alrighty. And then I have the couple that didn't happen. And so I know we did talk about this, and but I don't know if I told you who it was. So anyway, I was thinking about June and Ted because they had them at one time sit down and have a conversation, and I like their chemistry. Yes, it would have been odd because that would be Ted's, grandchildren's mother, but I thought they kind of matched really well. All right, Brandon, what about you for the couple that did not happen?
Yeah, I certainly did like their dynamic as well. I don't know if I like the chemistry that they had, despite the messiness of what exactly that would mean for the grandchildren. But yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with that. And this sounds dumb, but yeah, a soap opera you're supposed to cue up some drama. Not that I want to destroy the only working couple we have, but we got a tease of Vernon may or may not having this non-existent affair we never thought he was having. But here's the thing: I never thought that he was going to have the affair. Therefore, I would like to see the affair actually happen.
Okay. Yeah, that would be interesting to see. I don't necessarily know if Vernon had another child out there, I think that would be interesting. And the child could be from before he married, he married Anita.
And and here's the thing:
Mm-hmm.
actually, I would have liked that as a misdirect, actually, where
Okay.
we assume that Ted is, I mean, that Vern's the one with the extra person, but it's actually Nita. Um, but here's the thing: I don't need it to be a romantic one.
Uh-huh.
To me, even if this is just a friend that I've had this very close friend for all of these years, and like I've never mentioned it to my partner. I think even that would have been, I think, a cool dynamic to have.
Okay. All right. We'll see what they do. All right. And then we're going to talk about the most disappointing party, and that is Winterfest. We had such a buildup to this party, and I was expecting so much more, and there was nothing for Winterfest, or at least in my opinion. All right, Brandon, what about you for most disappointing party that they've talked about?
Yes, it's definitely Winterfest. I know we were discussing that similar to the fashion show from earlier. We were actually going to do an episode about Winterfest, and then it came and went, and it was the biggest disappointment. At the very least, I think I would have liked to change the scenery. I mean, like we've seen the country club, get decorated before. That's not. I don't think that's any different than any other day there.
Yeah, yeah, that it was just so disappointing. Yeah. All right. And then from now, I'm going to talk about the most interesting newer character. I will say that Beyond the Gates has introduced like 3 to 4 different characters very recently. And so, out of the newer characters that were just introduced, for me, the most interesting one is Kyle. It's kind of bringing out an interesting side of Nicole, and I like Kyle. So, for me, he's the most interesting newer character. All right, Brandon, what about you for most interesting newer character?
Okay, I don't remember his name, but you'll probably remember his name before I do. And that would actually be Vanessa's son.
Oh yeah, I don't remember his name, but yeah, I do. I know who you're talking about, and I do like him. He does a nice job acting. All right, and then the most redundant storyline or character, and I'm going for character for this one, and that's Derek. I don't know the point. And so Derek is the character who they can't figure out what to do with. And we talked about this off camera that we are disappointed that he's not going to be a firefighter any longer. I think that they could have kept him, that he could have kept that job. Um, but I don't know where they're going with his character, if at all. All right, Brand, what about you for redundant storyline or character?
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that. And first of all, Vanessa's son is Donnell McBride.
Okay, cool.
And it's funny that we mentioned this category because of something that I don't want. And I think that it's easy to assume Derek is the person that I'm thinking about this, but I think that's the obvious one. So I'm going to go for something different.
All right, what is that?
This is the several months after the party for Ted, where he just repeatedly got drunk and was depressed over and over and over again. Because it got to me, it was getting annoying very quick. It was right when they switched out the Teds, and we went from Ted being a overly like defensive of his territory person that was all about protecting his family to just a oh well, Nicole doesn't want me, I'm just going to go get drunk, and oh Eva, can you help me out with, I mean, we just kept doing this over and over and over again until the divorce. I mean, no wonder Nicole was so quick to get rid of him at that point.
Yeah. Yes, I am so glad that they have decided that Ted needs to have a personality now, and that he does have Shanice, and I do like him with Shanice
For now.
for now. Yeah. All right. And then I looked at the grandchildren because I realized I really haven't talked about any of the true Duprees, and so I decided to the category as favorite grandchild of the Duprees. And for me, I chose Martin. I just like Martin. So I decided that he's the favorite grandchild. All right, Brandon, what about you?
Yeah, Mom, I'm gonna have to agree with that. I if you think it's interesting because we've gotten to know all four of them a little bit over the course of the of this past year, but yeah, I would have to agree it's Martin, and I think that they even have in my mind favoritism as well as at least Vernon.
Yeah, he does. He speaks to Martin on a regular basis. All right, and then favorite character transformation. And that for me is Nicole. I like that they have made a very boring character a little bit more interesting to watch now. So, so Nicole is my favorite character transformation. What about you, Bran?
It's interesting that you mentioned that because I was definitely on board for transformation, but I haven't. I don't know. Well, I would suppose over the past 2 weeks or so, as of taping this, that I would agree with that. But prior to that, she definitely, I think, was just sort of stuck in place. But I will say I liked the immediate, right before they killed off Doug. I liked what they did with Vanessa. I thought that they were doing a really good job with that. Now, I'm not saying I don't like what they're doing with her now. It's just more so that I think they're just kind of stuck right now. But I think right before they killed off Doug, that she was a very strong character and more independent, and fiercely still loved Doug and her family, but also was able to hold her own.
Yeah, and just to talk about Doug very briefly, Doug for a character for me was someone who I liked as a character, and I think he was very fond of his wife, and even though she cheated, she was very fond of him too. I thought that Doug was a character I kind of wanted to see grow, but kind of dug him into a hole per se. So
The Doug.
they dug Doug into a hole, and so I was really sorry to see him go. All right. Now we have what family needs to be expanded. Brandon and I talked about characters who we think need to be expanded on the show, meaning that, we have the Dupree family, we have hints of other families, but we don't really have other families that are on there. It really is just truly the Dupree family with extensions. And so we were trying to figure out what character could they expand upon to create a new family. And so there were two that I kind of thought about, and it took me a while to think about it. Carlton, I know that he's involved with Nicole, and it's probably short lived, but I like Carlton as a character. So it would be interesting to see if they actually gave Carlton a family and to see what they could do with it. Or to expand his family anyway. And then the other person is Shanice. Shanice is pretty grounded on there. I mean, she's a nurse. I think they can give Shanice a family and kind of grow her character along with her family also. And so those are the two who I thought about. I know they've kind of touched on some people, but and at one point in time, I think I said Andre was one who I would have liked to see them grow, but he's kind of they've I think they've kind of grown him as a character per se, so he doesn't necessarily need the other foundation. So I'd like to see them kind of take these, you know, a side character and kind of give them a truly meaty family. All right, Brandon, what about you?
Well, I think I'm going to agree with the part that you had mentioned for. So Mom, I'm going to have to agree with you for Shanice. I definitely feel that she would work well with a family, and because she's even though she spreads all the gossip, you notice that she's very secretive about her own stuff. So I could easily see it where you could write that in and saying that, oh yeah, well, they're here, they've been here. It's just a matter of you know, uh, work is for work and for spreading other people's gossip, not mine. But I would want to see it where I don't know that her family is more out there than she is, um, and not in a bad way. But I would like to see it where you're able to really grow her family and be like another family for the show to focus on.
Yeah, sounds good. And then we talked about some other storylines that can just be explored in general. And this may sound really weird. Brandon and I were kind of talking about this. I'd like to see them explore the Chelsea Cat storyline, in the sense that we know that they own a business, but we only see them for business purposes sitting in the gatehouse or whatever type of house that is. And they're not in a real office. Not that they have to be in a real office, but I'd like to see some sort of mock up office somewhere, because they do have. I mean, they've got supplies. They give purses and things, so they've got to have some sort of warehouse or something that they have. And I think it would be interesting to see if they would actually. You could have a whole business side of Chelsea Cat that they could kind of bring in new characters for because they would all be equal. You kind of make them all kind of just show some employees working. All right, Brandon, what about you?
Well, first of all, you took your answer somewhat from me, but I definitely feel that Chelsea Cat needs employees, and I want for since we have a few different lawyers in the show, I'd like to see some law scenes and so I mean I want a change of environment. That's I think something I really want to see.
Yeah, and we talked about Naomi offline too. I mean, Naomi's this lawyer who doesn't defend anyone, or prosecute or whatever she does. So I'd like to see Naomi actually practice law. Um, and the couple things that they've had her do, they had her drop. So I'd like for her to be a strong lawyer as they claim that she is. All right. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about was really what Beyond the Gates does really well. And one of the things I think they do really well is actually give closure to storylines. They do a really nice job. I mean, even so far as to have the black curtain fall, or some sort of closure is there. And, it could be a song. I just think they do a nice job with that, and so that's something I want to give kudos to the writers or whoever's deciding this, because they do a nice job. All right, Brandon, what about you? What is something you think that Beyond the Gates does well?
Yes, I definitely will agree with that. I feel like they do really well with closure and overarching storylines that sometimes touch on people that aren't even really related to each other. And we've spoken about quite a few of those as the focus of our episodes. And so I think that's something they do really well, and that their characters typically are in the same sequence within an episode. So if someone's doing something, there's a good chance that the people in the other storyline are doing something that correlates to that. So I think that they do a really good job for that.
Yes. And last but not least, Danny. I like Danny as a character. I realized that I had not spoken with her in any, and she didn't fit any of the characters categories really. But I really do like Danny as a character. All right, Brandon. Anything else that you want to talk about with Beyond the Gates?
Well, I did want to say briefly that since this was in a recent episode, was Chelsea and Madison are now engaged, but also that Chelsea is not going to Copenhagen. But I think that's somewhat of a missed opportunity. Not that I want Chelsea to leave by any means necessary, but we often see her as the dominant figure in the relationship and in her personality as a whole. Yes, that was challenged when, of course, she had her lovely uh, incident where she was missing, which was a really good storyline. But outside of that, we have not really seen her in a not dominant storyline. So I would like to have seen it where she is only for about a week or so. We get to see them in Copenhagen, even if it's just a new set of the indoors of a house, and where Madison's the one taking charge because we don't see her as really the leader of the relationship. So I would have liked to see that sort of flip, even temporarily, before they say, "Oh, well, I need to be with my family," because I know that conversation would have happened. But I would have liked to see them at least try it a little bit before they had called it quits before they left.
Yeah, and that's true too. All right, Brandon. Well, thank you for taking the time and speaking with me about Beyond the Gaze.
Yes, Mom, I definitely enjoyed it, and we'll be speaking more about Beyond the Gates in 2026.
Yes, we sure will be speaking more about it. All right, thank you guys for watching, and let us know what your thoughts are about some of these categories. We'd love to hear. All right, have a great day, everybody.
We'll see you next time.
All right, bye bye.